Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video. Today, I'm back. I'm excited. Hopefully you guys are doing well, practicing self-care, taking care of yourself, building yourself up, becoming the best possible version of yourself to make sure that you can walk in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, get the job done, because I know 44 people did exactly that since my last video, and it amazes me how many people are repping and rocking in the Fill in the Gaps community, how many people are building themselves up, pushing past the self-doubt, doing exactly what they know that they should be doing. And prior to walking in the Fill in the Gaps community, they were second-guessing, they were doubting themselves, they were tearing themselves down, they were drawing in materials, and they really weren't sure what it was going to look like. But they kept it simple, followed their process, trusted themselves, did not second-guess themselves, did not rush themselves, and did exactly what they thought they were going to do, which is pass! Well, let's see who they are. And they are as follows: Lariah M., Miranda P., Brittany G., Seda F., Kayla N., Trista P., Jennifer I., Martin C., Shamira M., Patricia C., Kathleen R., Brian H., Anna W., Beline C., Michelle B.W., Tamara S., Amy H., Mama K., Elisa C., Kristen J., Shirley N., Carmen N., Rihanna L., Sydney N., Sarah D., Edwaya A., Laura E., Ashley H., Daniel J., Heather R., Amy H., Ethan M., Keith S., Kariel O., Melissa V., Francine G., Sarah G., HMR, Emily W., Angela R., Marissa M., Erica J., Victoria S., and Lori R. I'm so excited, man, because, like I said, from the bottom of my heart, it amazes me how many of you guys rep and rock with me, whether it's just watching the videos, if you're going to the study groups, if you're going to the one-day course, if you're doing tutoring, or if you're just being who you are and just doing everything that you can. It just brings a smile to my face, and you never know what impact that you can have on people. So like I said, from the bottom of my heart, if you are on that list, or if you're not on that list yet, but you're still repping and rock with me, know that you're amazing. Know that you can do anything that you set your mind to, and you can get the job done. Don't let anything take you outside of what you know to be true, whether that's a previous exam, whether that's a thought in your head, whether that's a person in your life. Don't let anyone take you outside of what you know to be true. Stay locked and loaded. And if you're like, Phil, how can I get involved in the Fill in the Gaps community? How can I rep and rock with you? How can I work with you to get the job done? The easiest way to do that are the Sunday study groups. And then the next ones are as follows: 124, client interventions; 131, meds and DSM-5, so going over the medications and comparing it to the diagnosis that they would be paired with; 27, acronym and practice questions, so going through each level of the acronym, going over 10 practice questions to see what that looks like, and they will be different practice questions than the different previous practice questions study group. 214, research, program development, and evaluation, and those are all on Sundays from 7 until they kick us out p.m. Eastern time. And I used to give a time limit, but if you've been in those study groups, I don't really stick to it because I just tend to give as much as I possibly can. So every single one has a question and answer segment after them as well. So it's difficult for me to give you like a set time because it could end at 10 p.m., it could end at 11 p.m., it could end at midnight, etc. And all of that because I just want to give as much as I possibly can. And if you want any information on those, you can click the link in the description, which is under the title. You just click down the arrow and then it'll show it to you, or send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And for those that are curious, yes, there is still room in the one-day course, which is this Saturday, January 23rd at 11 a.m., starting at 11 a.m. in the morning, Eastern time, and going until whenever. And there's going to be a lot of content and a lot of things that we go through, and that has been the most successful thing that I ever thought of, because so many people have walked in that and just been like, whoa. I've been to one-day courses before by other people. It just didn't quite make sense to me. And then I attended this one, and a lot of things were going off in my mind, or now I know what a process looks like, and now I feel confident. And all of it is recorded, so you're able to look back at it at your own pace. And if you're like, Phil, what if I can't go to it? And what if my exam is before then? Well, it is recorded, and there are previous one-day courses that you can get access to as well. So if you want any information about that, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link in the description down below. And for you all that are like, what is the one-day course? Well, it is going over the tips I find most helpful for people to walk into the exam, kick it directly in the chest. It is the most common reasons why people fail the exam. So different things that if you're aware of, you can be more mindful of and put in strategies and techniques to counter them. Breaking down multiple topics that people find tricky: subpoena versus court order, referral versus supervision. What does that look like in a question? Community organizing. We're going to be going over the meds. We're going to be going over the personality disorders, operant conditioning. And then we're going to be breaking down the acronym, each level of it. We're going to be going over the 5-step process that I recommend people to utilize when going through the exam. And that way, if you have a structure and you have a system that you can count on to get you through the exam, when your anxiety spikes up, you'll have something to fall back on, and it's not all on top of you. And then to top it all off, we will be doing 25 practice questions. And for those that were in last Sunday's practice questions study group, they kind of taken the comment that I always say in the videos: if you come into these study groups, do not walk in thinking you're going to get every single one of them correct, because these questions are built and programmed and written by me to give you the most difficult process to make sure that you're understanding why the answer is true and actually reading the details and not jumping to conclusions, not getting yourself exhausted, not tearing yourself up, but staying inside of the questions so that way you have the best possibility of having a process and getting difficult questions. Because when you practice with difficult questions, when you walk into the exam, they may not be as difficult and you are having an easy day rather than practicing with easy questions and then going through difficult questions the day of the exam and then not feeling like you can get the job done. And as I said before, if you want any information about the one-day course, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link in the description down below. As well as I still do offer individual tutoring. My schedule is booking out 3 to 4 weeks in advance. So if you want to get on the schedule and work directly with me, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link in the description down below. And if your exam is coming up sooner than that, you can always email me and I can add you to the tutoring waiting list. So that way, if I get any cancellations, you can have a possibility to work directly with me. And for those that do not know, Audible's continued to agree to sponsor both my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It's an easy way to give back and to support me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And again, go to Audible, my affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. And for those that are like, Phil, what the heck is Audible? I hear you talk about it all the time, but how can I benefit from it? Audible is an easy way to get information on the go. So if you're busy, just like me, but you still want to become the best possible version of yourself, you can listen to audiobooks on the go, and that way you're still able to get knowledge, you're able to advance yourself, and able to still do the things that you ultimately would have done. And the way to benefit me would be go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. And from the bottom of my heart, for those that have already done that, I appreciate every single one of you. And if you're like, Phil, I want to sign up, but I'm not sure what book I should get, there are a couple that I would recommend. They are Outliers, Just Mercy, The Power of Habit, and The Alchemist. And I have brought it back, my podcast. So if you do not know, I have a podcast. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. It's at Fill in the Gaps. And I'm going to start uploading a YouTube video every 2 weeks. And the week that I don't upload the YouTube video, I'm going to have a podcast episode uploaded. So that way I can give it back as much as I possibly can to you. So if you were listening to the podcast in the past, it is back. So check it out. It is pretty amazing. And it's directly interacting with all you amazing people out there that have either passed the exam or struggling to pass the exam. And a lot of people that you hear have already passed the exam by the time that you've listened to it. And if you're finding the content that I'm putting out, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, click it down below, because the more people that like the videos, the more people that are able to discover the videos, and the bigger the Fill in the Gaps community can get. Comment down below one positive thing that you're planning to do or that you want other people to hear, because you don't know the power of your words, your power of your thoughts, and how many people look at the comments. They're feeling discouraged. They're not sure what to do, and your words could turn that all the way around. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button down below. Click the bell notification next to it, because it notifies you every time I upload a video. I can't believe we hit 20,000 subscribers. I'm just mind blown by that, because when I first started, I was like, man, hopefully I can help at least one person. And we've helped a bunch of people, and all thanks to you guys, because without you guys, there is no me. And there's one thing else that has been on my mind, and that is focus on the things that are important to you. Way too many people I've been hearing are like, Bill, I want to hang out with my family, or I have my job and all these things are stressful, but I still want to pass my exam, or I'm not even sure if I should be studying for my exam, or I'm not sure if I want to do that. Sit yourself down and say, what is most important to me right now? And there's no shame in the game, whatever answer you say. So if the exam is not your number one priority right now, you have to be willing to admit that to yourself, because where your focus goes, your energy flows, and where your energy flows, your focus tends to want to follow as well. So you have to be intentional and deliberate where you're putting your focus, because if it's not on your exam and you're wondering why you're feeling unmotivated, you're not sure what you want to do or if you should be studying for the exam, etc., make sure it is a priority in your life. And that's okay if you want to take self-care breaks. That's okay if you want to do different things, but you have to admit it to yourself and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give myself permission for it, because I get stressed out and I get frustrated, because when I hear people say, well, Phil, I took X amount of time off, or I did this and I wasn't studying. Good, because your life should not revolve around studying if that's not what you need. If you are going to spend time with your family or your friends, or you're going to take some time off, that may be more beneficial for you than pushing down, throttling down, studying 100% of the time, doing way too many things. Because if you're doing too many things and you're not focused and you're not conditioned to do so, you're going to be less effective at the things that you're doing. So you have to make sure that what you are doing is actually leading you to where you want to go. So if going out and spending time with your family is going to help you pass your exam more so than buckling down, avoiding that situation, not putting in the time, then you need to make sure that you are doing intentional and deliberate actions that are actually going to lead you to the result. And you're like, Phil, you just gave me permission not to study 100% of my day. Yes, because way too many people are like, I'm struggling, man. I want to do all these things. I need to take some time off, but I'm afraid that I'm going to lose. What are you going to lose? Because where you are putting your energy, it may benefit you more so than if you're forcing yourself into a situation that does not feel comfortable. And if you're somebody that is listening to this and you're like, Phil, I failed the exam. I'm not even sure if I want to take it on again. That is okay, but the only thing that is not okay, if you deep down in your heart, you want to do it, but you're afraid that you're going to fail, because a part of success is that fear of failure, but pushing past it anyway. Because the only thing that dictates whether you pass or fail the exam is the actual exam, not a thought that you have, not a person in your life, not your previous exam, not a situation over here, not this over here, not that. The only thing that matters is that day when you walk into the exam and you bring your process in and you show the exam exactly what you're bringing in. You grab it by the neck, you rip its throat out, kick it in the chest, get the job done, and say, I just came to collect my passing paper. That's what you have to do, not, oh my God, hopefully I remember this or hopefully that. So making sure that the day that you walk into your exam is an exciting day. That does not mean that you shouldn't experience anxiety, because you care. So give yourself permission to do these things, because when you give yourself permission, you stop kicking your butt and you start kicking the things that need its butt kicked, like the exam. So do not drag yourself down a negative hole if you're not doing the things that you've told yourself that weren't important at that given moment. That doesn't mean that the exam should be your life, because that is a part of your life. So you have to put energy there, but do not make that the only source and neglect other areas of your life that are super important, making sure that you're focusing on the things that are important to you and that would represent you and pour back into you more so than if you were to force yourself into a situation that you're not supposed to be in. It's been heavy on my heart because I've been hearing way too many amazing social workers beating up on themselves for things that are outside of their control or things that aren't that important to them, or they're doing self-care and they're dragging themselves down for doing it, because as a social worker, you would never tell anyone else in your life to do that. So don't hold yourself to standards that you wouldn't hold somebody else to, and don't be as harsh on you. And because when you're less harsh on yourself and you're giving yourself credit and building yourself up and you're being kind to yourself and giving yourself grace, you are going to do things way easier and accomplish more things than if you're dragging yourself down, tearing yourself down, playing small, and not getting the opportunities and situations that you need to. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you need anything, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. I hope to see you guys all at the one-day course or the study group on Sunday, and keep building yourself up to be the best possible version of yourself, because we need you to be better every single day. That doesn't mean that you need to put yourself into tough situations 100% of your time. So making sure that 100% of your times are tough, so that way you become tough in situations, and when you get into tough situations, they're easier for you. And you guys are all amazing. Sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of this footage. It's me interacting with people that are struggling to pass their exams, people that have passed their exams, and giving practical tips on how to get the job done. I'm out of here, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video, and peace out, guys. Help on motivation for studying.
Hi, Phil.
How is it going?
Going pretty well. I am scheduled to take my test for my LMSW on June 22nd. So, kind of how you were talking about earlier in the beginning, I was kind of comparing myself to other people and how they were studying for this test. I recently graduated as well, so just kind of talking to people and seeing what they were doing kind of really made me postpone for a long time just even getting started on studying. So now that I have been studying and I made a plan, I've kind of been seeing that I'm losing motivation as I'm doing practice tests. Just not seeing that I do as well as I want to kind of holds me back from wanting to do it again. So I'm wondering if you have any advice with that.
Yeah, so the first question that I have is, why are you doing this process?
Well, for sure. That's a thing I think I ask myself a lot. I mean, kind of how other people have been expressing. I just really love this field and I really want to finally set foot in it professionally. I mean, I've worked, it seems like, my whole life to kind of get to this point. So I want to do it for others, and I also want to do it for myself more than anything.
Who in particular in your life would benefit you passing the exam?
I feel like, um, well, me. I mean, for the first time ever, just putting myself as a priority. My problem too, though, is that I put a lot of stress on myself in terms of not letting others down. And I know, for example, my fiance, he's a teacher, he's a high school teacher, and, he's a little bit older than I am, and he's got he's paving his way professionally, and I want to be there too. I want to be able to support my family financially, and so I'm just having a lot of pressure on, my friends and family know I'm taking this test. If I fail, it'll be a disappointment to them, not only to myself. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place.
So I think that's a two stem. Like if we had a fork in the road, we have, I really want to do this for myself, but I'm
Yeah.
also afraid because I'm going to let other people down. Which side of the road are you more or less on?
Oh gosh, probably. Yeah, I care too much about what other people think. So I think letting other people down because I want to make people proud, people that care for me. So I'm kind of on that end. And I think my anxiety really stems from that, is just knowing how great of a support system I have and then feeling like I failed if I don't pass.
And that's a very, very difficult balance to have. And that's why I always ask, why are you doing this? And it's when you have those waves of doubt of, am I going to fail? And if I fail, all of these things are going to happen. Start playing out, what if I pass and what will it look like from there? Because if we always look at the negative and say, if I fail, I'm going to let my fiance down. Everyone's going to hate me. They're going to think I'm less than. This other person passed the exam on the first try. What
Yeah.
is everyone else going to think about me? And those are pressures that you have to lay to rest and get actual evidence for them.
Yeah.
Of
I never thought about it that way. I mean, I've always just been so hard on myself, and I just need to give myself the ability to just try to focus on my own goals and breathe. Just breathe for once, I feel like.
Because if you looked at your fiance and had a conversation tonight, if I failed this test, are you going to think less of me? What do you think he would say?
Oh, he would say no, not at all. I mean, yeah. And that's what I mean too. Like my family is supportive, my fiance is supportive, so I just always assume the worst, I think, and I know they're not going to stop loving me or stop supporting me if I fail. And so yeah, that makes me feel better too.
And when you have those flashes of doubt, you have to pull yourself outside and say, this evidence I'm telling myself is not real. And I'm doing this because I don't actually think I can pass. And it's easier for me to say that other people are going to hate me than for me to say I'm going to hate myself because I didn't live up to the person that I thought I was supposed to be.
Oh my gosh, yes, exactly. And I feel like I don't take accountability for I can't even talk right now. Accountability. Thank you. I can't take accountability oh my gosh, for that. So, it's tough. I mean, I know I've been doing everything I can, and I've just kind of I need to get out of that rut of putting it off for later. I mean, I have all my study materials in front of me. I've been taking practice tests. I just need to keep doing that and um, just try the best I can because that's all I can do. And that's what people have been telling me too, is just do the best you can. So I'll stop trying to worry about what others may think of me, regardless of what happens, because I know in the moment it's just up to me and it's something that I want to do for myself. So that's what my focus will be.
And I think I think the beginning blocks to get there is knowing that if people are going to be that flippant in your situation of if things are not going well for me, that you're going to turn your back on me, you are going to turn your back on me when things got tough regardless. So I'm just going to wave you gone and say, see you later, because those that stay in my situation deserve to stay in that situation and reap the benefits of when I actually get to where I want to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true.
So to keep your motivation up, just remembering when I pass the exam, this is what it's going to look like. When I pass the exam, this is what I'm going to be able to do. When I pass the exam, this is what I want to see for myself in 5 years. When I pass the exam, this is what I'm going to do to celebrate. When I pass the exam, I'm going to accomplish all of these things, but in order for me to do that, I need to lay to rest the things that are going to hold me back, regardless of how much I accomplish. Because if I'm always going to be difficult with myself and not give myself credit for the things that I'm doing right now, there's no telling that it's going to be an unfulfilling situation because I'm always going to be chasing the next thing to impress the people around me because I don't feel like I actually belong in those environments.
That's a good way of putting it too. I mean, I've I I think my biggest weakness is trying to be a perfectionist. So when it comes to something this big in my life and this scary and intimidating, something I've never done before, I do always go to, well, what will people think of me if I fail? But I still have to remind myself that we all encounter situations like this. I mean, I know everyone here with you, we all appreciate your help and your insight because this is a big moment for us and this is something a lot of us have never done before. It's something that's still scary. So I still have to remind myself too that no one's perfect, when we all struggle with things like this. And it is kind of putting things into perspective for me. Although I wasn't too thrilled about having to take this exam just because of my anxiety, I know it's something that will help me in the long run with kind of learning about what my motivation is in this field and what my purpose is and, yeah, who my people are.
And that's why I say, like, in the most trying times, you figure out the people that are going to try and help build you up rather than tear you down. And I'm not a superhuman. So I've had like situations where I didn't even think it was going to work out. Like the YouTube videos, the podcast, taking my own licensure test, actually getting into grad school, getting into undergraduate, actually. And still to this day, it's like, I've done all of these things and I'm still wondering, like, when are people going to stop supporting me because I'm going to do something or say something or not do something or not say something, and people are just going to turn their back. And it's like, there's enough evidence on the table to show that people are still rocking and supporting you and doing all of these things. It's just the own things inside of me that I had to let go and say, your thoughts right now are your fears. And every time that you step inside of your fears and step outside of your insecurities, you now gain security because you have the experience to now educate. Because if I had no instances of failing and had a super easy situation, I would not have the understanding that I have when I interact with people that are like, yo, I'm feeling down or I'm not really sure what to do. And it's like, yo, as long as you continue building yourself up and trying and consistently putting it in work, it's very impossible not to get progress in your situation if you are putting consistent effort over and over and over and consistently doing that. Not, I'm going to binge here and then I'm going to pull back and then I'm going to binge and then I'm going to pull back, because that's normal human nature. We want our goals. We want our objectives. We want to feel good in the moment. But when the situation stops feeling good, we stop putting our best foot forward and channel it towards something else that does feel good, but it's not lasting. Because if we sat in the moment that was discomfort or uncomfortable for us, we would actually get comfortable and learn what it feels like to put in effort when we do not see the results. So my biggest thing for people is, do not focus on whether you pass or fail the exam. Focus on the effort and consistency and the characteristics you built and put on yourself that you can take after you have passed the exam or even failed the exam. So regardless of the attempt you're on, the things that you learn in preparation will help you perform forever.
That's genius. I never really thought about it that way. I mean, taking the time to reflect and understand the process and accept all the feelings that I'm dealing with right now will help me in the future, like you said, to manage any problems I may confront in the future in terms of self-doubt, fear, all of this stuff that we're going through right now. So thank you. Yeah, I'll really just focus on striving to kind of manifest positive things and push past these fears for sure. So thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. And if I can help at all, just reach out.
Thank you.
I take my test for the LMSW in July and I'm nervous. What are some good tips for studying and staying motivated?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going? How's it going?
Hi, it is going good. First of all, I am so glad you got to my question. So I have struggled with taking this test. I graduated in December of 2015, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, social work isn't making me enough money, so I'm going to go be a teacher. And then I went through that whole little part of my life. And then I was like, you know what? Around age 30, I was like, look, social work is my calling. I don't know how come I didn't follow this. This is what I'm meant to do. And so by the time I test in July, I will have turned 32. I will be just freshly 32. And so now I'm kind of putting things into perspective. But I have so much anxiety. So I have the book by Don Apgar. I'm also using Pocket Prep, and I'm also looking through your videos as well. For a while, I just shut down and wouldn't do anything. And so here recently, I'm like, look, you have got to get yourself together and study for this test, because for me, I haven't had a good job yet. I've had to work a lot of lowball jobs, and not to say that I'm not humble enough to accept where I've worked, but I'm just saying, I'd like to move up and really get into my field and do more in social work. So that's kind of where my question is coming from. Like I said, I have so much anxiety. I have the book in front of me, and sometimes I get so overwhelmed, I'll shut the book. I won't open it. But here recently, something that's been pushing me to say, look, you have got to study. And originally I was going to take my test in June, but then I was like, you know what? Let me move it to July. But now I don't want to move it anymore.
So my biggest recommendation is to slow down.
Okay.
And I say slow down because you're like, I wanted to be a social worker. I wasn't making enough money. I wanted to be a teacher. I came back to being a social worker. I'm not making enough money again. I need to get this out of the way. I need to be making more. I want to be doing this. And it's like, you will get where you're supposed to go. You just have to do the steps. There's no way of speeding up expertise in revenue, if you will.
Yes.
And the first step is you walking into the test and passing. So all of your energy does not need to be looking at someone else's bank account or looking at how much you could be making or doing all these other things. It needs to be, I need to humble my doggone butt and say, I'm not making a lot of money right now, but I'm getting the experience that is worth more than money, that is going to be getting me more money in the future.
Yes, and I agree with that. And let me not say that I'm not humble. It's just like, you know, I guess I'm at a point where I'm tired of running away from it all, because it seems like I've just run away when it comes to taking this test. I've just put it off and put it off and put it off.
So what are you doing with your free time right now?
Now I'm finally getting up enough nerve to actually study. Because previously, you know, I've been doing our visits to study for it. I finally paid for it, blah, blah, blah. But now I'm finally saying, okay, I really need to just sit down and study. So that's what I've been doing these past few days. And like I said, I don't want to move my test back. I want to go ahead and test in July, because it'll be my first time taking the test.
So what will passing do for you in your situation?
I mean, it will help me, because like I said, I've done a lot of lower paying jobs. You know, I worked at Sam's Club for 2 years, worked as a teacher's assistant. I mean, you know, but I've done what I've had to do. And don't get me wrong, every job that I've worked has brought some kind of experience. Even working as a teacher's assistant, I was still using social work skills because I was working with kids. So every job that I've had has brought some kind of experience, but it's one of those things like, I want to be who I'm called to be. I don't want to keep on just settling and being content where I'm at, if that makes sense.
What do you want to do?
Eventually, I still would love to work with kids. I have a very soft spot in my heart for kids, and definitely underprivileged kids, because I was an underprivileged kid. And that's really what I like to do, not in the capacity of CPS, but just really, you know, working and mentoring with kids and just helping them and their family find necessary resources that are vital to their success.
So that's what all your time and focus has to be on, is this exam is not just an exam. It's the job that I want. And me studying has to become my job, because if I want to help underprivileged kids progress in their situation, I need to pass this exam, because it gives me the credentials to be able to do that. So this exam isn't about whether I answer the questions right or wrong. It's, do I want to become the best possible version of myself and get to where I want to go? And when I feel unmotivated and like I want to push it off, I'm pushing my dreams and goals off at that moment.
Okay, now see, I hadn't thought about it like that. Now that's what I needed right there. I'm writing everything down as you say it.
Because think about it. You're like, man, if I don't pass this test, I can't do this job. And it's like, well, this exam's the key to open the door to get you to the job. So if you're not putting the energy towards that, you have to be honest with yourself and say, I don't want the job as bad as I thought I wanted it.
Right. And of course, I want to work in the school district, and working in the school district, you have to be licensed. There's no way around it. You have to be licensed.
So all of your attention needs to be like, all right, what school do I want to be in? What do the kids look like that I want to work with? What is the location? And then every single second you're like, man, I don't feel like studying or whatever. Be like, yup, is this the timeline of you getting into this school and then doing this and then being able to do this? Nope. Okay. Is the job what I want right now? Yes. Okay. How do I get myself motivated? And then building yourself up, and also being realistic with the studying and saying, I may not be able to do as much as I think I'm going to do, but let me read a page or two or do a question or two, because that's a page or two or a question or two more than I would have done if I would have done nothing.
Right. You're very right.
And that's where you have to like scale it back.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. My anxiety gets me so overwhelmed. And like with you saying that, like I understand and it's coming to me clear, because that's clearly why I haven't taken the test. Like I said, I've had my MSW since 2015, but I have just been so filled with anxiety when it's come to taking this test. And then, I talk to other friends and they're like, well, we didn't pass it and I didn't pass it, and I've been kind of just trying to keep at the forefront, like, I'm going to pass this test. I'm going to pass this test, speaking positivity.
Well, let's talk about it in a client context. Let's say you're meeting with a kid. They come to you and say, I want to go to college. No one has ever been to college where I come from. Everyone's telling me I'm not smart enough and I can't get in. What do you think? What are you going to tell that kid?
I would tell the kid, you are smart enough and you have to believe that you're smart enough, because a lot of stuff that we don't do, and I guess I'm answering my own question as well, but a lot of stuff that we have hard times is because we lack the confidence of doing it. We lack the belief of, I can do it.
And that's the thing is, if you're going to tell somebody else, like, it doesn't matter what your friends did. Maybe your friends didn't want to go to college, or maybe they just threw it in. But if you have a vision in your head, you have the capability of doing it. Same thing with your exam. There are colleagues that are going to say, dude, I failed this multiple times. It's impossible. I think it's dumb that we have to do this. And then there's the other side of the fence that we often don't get to hear from that says, dude, it is entirely possible. I failed after X, Y, and Z time, but I didn't give up and I was still willing to fight. And then I'm on the other side. Because when you pass the exam, very few people look back and say, darn, it took me so long to get here. They're like, dude, I'm actually excited to actually be here. So that's where you have to get your head around is, just because someone else failed does not mean that that's your situation. Don't live out someone else's situation when you haven't experienced it, because that's not your life.
Right. Agreed. And I think that's another thing that's been kind of worrying me, because I'm like, well, she said she failed it and I had another friend that failed, and I'm like, but wait a minute. You haven't even taken it, so you don't know if that's going to be your story or not.
So stop trying to predict things before you do it. Have blind faith, jump off the cliff, and know that you're going to have the wings to fly.
Thank you so much. I received all of the information you just gave me. I needed all that information, because I'm telling you, my anxiety is like at 150, but I don't want to keep pushing my test back, because I feel like if I keep doing it, then I'll keep doing it. And I'll give myself another excuse. Well, push it back, keep pushing it back. And then before you know it, another year, 2 years will pass and I won't have done anything.
The biggest piece of advice I can give you, and this is from other people, by the way, most people that I work with that said, dude, I waited this much time to take my exam, they regret it more than the people that are like, yo, I started right out of the gate and have failed still the same amount of times as this other person that waited. But the person that has failed and consistently tried to pass is better off, because they've convinced themselves that it's the game of averages. The person that waited did not have the experience of building themselves up and getting the exposure of failing. And when they do fail, it's like a truck hits them, because they're like, whoa, I've never experienced that before. And I knew I shouldn't have taken the exam because of this. The person that's failed over and over and over and over and over, that has been willing to keep trying, is better off and is like, I'm here.
Okay. Well, I will go ahead and stick with July and taking it. And I'm going to continue studying, and I'll look back over all the tips you've given. And I just want to say thank you so much. It's helped me so much.
It is my pleasure. And if you need anything, just reach out. Okay.
All right. Will do. Thanks.
How long do you recommend studying for the test? So when it comes down to the recommendation of how long you should study, I ask people, picture how long you can see yourself focusing and being able to stay in the moment and going from there. So personally, I only took 2 weeks to take my exam, because I know myself that when I have a goal inside of me, I'm going to become obsessed with it and find the best possible way to make sure that it happens. But for other people, they would look and say 2 weeks it's unfathomable. So I tell them, peel it back, sit back and say, what is the greatest amount of time that you can take? What's the least amount of time? What's the greatest amount of time? And find it in the middle, because we don't want you to feel pressured to do this process, because when you feel pressured, you're not going to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. When you take too long, you're going to start questioning your ability of if you can even walk inside the exam, or someone's going to tell you about another material, and then you're going to own it as your experience, and then take that extra time, and then maybe never take the exam, and then get outside of yourself. So having that faith and saying, what the amount of time that I can do is the amount of time that I need. So there's not a recommended amount of time or recommended amount of material, because you also have to look at your learning style. So if you're a visual person, read a book. If you're a tactile person, do note cards, do charts. If you're visual and tactile, read and then make charts and diagrams of what you're looking at. And when you're also a auditory person, you need to hear it. So find things that are telling you the things, but also if you're visual and auditory, find things that are telling you the things and showing you the things. So that way you're walking inside of the learning style that you have. And you may be eclectic, meaning you have multiple different learning styles. And that's the thing, is finding what works for you and going from there. Just as you would tell a client, start where the client is and then go from there, because I have strengths as well as weaknesses. And when you have the weaknesses or drawbacks, you need to fill in the gaps to make sure that you can make them into strengths, because any tendency or strategy that you have as a weakness could be a strength if focused and put effort forth to make it a strength. Any tips on what we should first do when we sit and begin the test, like write down acronyms, etc.? So I haven't got this question in a long time, but the whiteboard or scrap paper that you get, what I recommend writing on there is what you would want to have as your fallback during the exam. So if there's a piece of information that you're like, yo, I think I'm going to forget this, or if I don't remember this, I'm not going to feel confident during the exam. So what I wrote on my whiteboard was the acronym, the SFARFI acronym. I was like, well, it didn't have the S on top of it, but the FARFI acronym. And it was like, okay, this is what I need to have on my board, because this is what I need. Did I look at the board? Absolutely not, because I had it so ingrained in my mind. But what I recommend writing on the board is what you need to. So I've had people write positive quotes. I've had people write theories. I've had people write concepts. I've had all these different things that people were comfortable with. So when you're considering what you want to see on your whiteboard, make sure it's what you need to have. And what you've having on your whiteboard during the exam is what you need to have on a scrap sheet of paper or whiteboard next to you when you're actually taking the practice exams, because that's what you need to be doing. And that is the thing that you need to be looking at, is the way that you practice is how you perform. So make sure you're consistent with and for your situation. Can you simplify the concepts ego, identity, and superego? It's kind of a continuum. So it's id, ego, and then superego. It's going to be a very deep continuum. So the easiest way to remember all of these things is to say, okay, let me picture the cartoon of the person, or Tom and Jerry, with the angel and devil on the shoulders. So id, the easiest way to remember is ID, impulsive decision making. And that's going to be more or less the devil. So it's going to be having someone act on their urges, and it's utilizing the name impulsive I, decisions D. So when you're looking at the id, just think impulsive decision making, because this is going to be the urges and the thing that makes you want to act on the impulses that you have. Ego, we can utilize the word as well. So we will manipulate the E and then go, E for evaluate, and then go. Why is that the concept? Because the ego is the person in the middle that's like, okay, I need to evaluate both sides. I need to examine the impulsive decision making, as well as the superego, which I will coin as the superhero, because that's looking and trying to benefit everyone else in the situation. So the ego is going to be evaluating and then going from there. And then superego, I tell people to think of a superhero. Why? Because this is going to be not acting on my impulsive decision making, but I'm trying to save and benefit everyone else in my situation. So this is our lens of trying to benefit and do good things for other people rather than acting on our impulses, which is the devil in the situation. Kind of summarize that again, we have the human, which is the ego. And then we have the id, which is kind of the devil on the shoulder saying like, do this bad behavior, man. It's not a big deal. There's no consequences. And then you have the angel on the other side that's like, yo, don't listen to him, man. We need to think of how this could impact everyone else. And then the ego is where you're deciding what you want to see within your situation. So that's how you'd simplify the ego, id, and superego. how do you eliminate bad answers? So this is kind of a tricky question because what you consider a bad answer may not be what someone else considers a bad answer. What I tell people to do when they're examining the answers is to attempt to link the question back to the answers and vice versa. So when you're looking at the answers, say, does this answer actually answer the question? And does this question link to the actual answers? Why? Because the question is there because it's helping you try to get closer to the answers. And the answers have to link back to the question, because if not, you just have 4 multiple choice questions and you would have to fill in the details, which can get people in trouble because a lot of times people will add to the questions or say, this is what my experience has been, which could consider it a quote unquote a bad answer, but there's not good or bad answers. There's just incorrect answers and correct answers. So some people may look at a question and be like, okay, this is the really best answer. And another person may say, this is the best answer. And they could both be correct in their own situations, but there's only one ethically correct answer, and that's based on the details in the question. So that's where I wouldn't suggest generalizing the answers or generalizing themes, but knowing that there are things and ways that you can examine the question, but the question is always going to tell you the answer. So how do you eliminate them? Utilizing the question to navigate the answering process is the absolute most important. How much of the disorder should we study? So that's kind of tricky because there's no guarantees of the materials that you'll have on your exam. Some people have no diagnostic questions. Other people have a ton of diagnostic questions. So not knowing every single intricate detail in the situation and saying, okay, this one has all of this stuff, just knowing, for example, major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder. The main difference is the length of time and severity. Major depressive disorder is 2 weeks or longer. Persistent, it persists over time, so it's 2 years or longer. I didn't have to remember all of the criteria to tell me that it was a depressive disorder. As long as I know it's a depressive disorder, I just have to differentiate between the two. And that's where a lot of people get caught up, is they're like, yo, I can't tell the difference or remember all of these criteria or all of this. And it's like, you may not have to. You just have to be able to conceptualize and be able to apply the information to practice questions or questions in general if it's on the actual exam. So how much do you have to study? It all depends on the version of the exam you get. But I always tell people, study an inch deep, a mile wide, and everything will be fine. So that's how much I would say that you have to study it. It all depends on your current situation, but always study the amount that you feel comfortable with. So a lot of times people are like, I'm super duper insecure about the diagnostics or disorders. I'm not really sure what the heck's going on. And it's like, when you're looking at the situation, if that's a weak point for you, put more focus on that area of content rather than other areas that could lead you to different situations. Please explain duty to warn and Tarasoff. Okay, so duty to warn is where somebody is likely going to harm. There's an imminent harm to somebody else and they have a specific plan. So there's kind of a continuum within the Tarasoff. So the person expresses motivation to hurt someone else. And the Tarasoff case was where somebody was telling a therapist, I'm going to kill this lady. And the therapist really did not do anything about it. Or they said, if you keep bringing this up in sessions, then I will do an action. The person, of course, did not continue with services and end up killing the lady anyway. So why this case is relevant is the person expresses motivation to hurt someone else. The details you need to examine from that point is, do they have a specific plan? And then if they have a specific plan, do they have the means to carry out the plan? So for example, I live in Michigan. If somebody was seeing a therapist in California and said, I've been watching those YouTube videos, I failed my exam, I'm going to kill that Philip Luttrell dude. And the therapist would go, okay, how do you think you would kill this guy? And then they would ask the specific plan. And then they would say, okay, how do you think you would carry out the plan? And they're like, yo, I don't really have a way to get to Michigan, but if I ever see that guy in California, he's done. You would not really have a duty to warn because they have no way of getting to Michigan. But if they're like, yo, I have a plane ticket, I'm flying there, I know where this dude lives, I'm going to run up on him and take his life. He took something from me, so I'm coming at this guy now. Then, if they have a specific plan, so if they have a specific means to do it, then follow these steps. So, contact authorities. Why are we contacting authorities over the contacting the person? The authorities can intercept the person that says they want to hurt someone over you contacting someone, maybe not getting a hold of the person, and then we have to hope they don't get to the person before we have warned them. So you're going to contact the authorities and then contact the person of interest. And then continue to assess. Don't just hand it off. Make sure that there is people being safe with and for this situation. So when we're looking at duty to warn, we have to warn people when there's imminent harm to them in some way. So kind of to reiterate it, we would specify, do they have a specific plan? If they have a specific plan, we have to figure out, do they have the specific means to do it? And if they do, then we contact the authorities, contact the person, and then continue to assess to make sure the person is safe with and for their situation. But let's say they don't have a specific plan, then we would not be able to find out the specific means, because if they don't have a plan, they haven't thought about how they're going to carry it out. So then we would drop down and continue to assess. So that is where you need to be able to understand the steps of this. So that is how we would, that's how I would explain duty to warn and terror off. I drink iced coffee all day. I think I have too much study material. Where do I start?
I was lucky enough. I have the Dawn APGAR book. I have the Therapist Development Center, and somebody gifted me the social work examination services test, and I just think it's too much material. Now, I took the test previously and failed by a point, and that was kind of my fault because I should have postponed it, but I didn't. My father was ill. Wasn't a good time to, it wasn't the best time for me to enter into the exam. So it was okay, but I think I just have too much. Like, what? I'm very lucky to have all of this, but now what? Do I do one, then the other? Or, like I have everything. It's sometimes overwhelming.
So walk me through the process. You walked into the exam. You failed by a point. What was your process leading up to that exam? Like, how did you study and what was helpful for you?
I was studying it with me, and actually information. It's either I know it or I don't know it. And I've had enough experience where it was okay, but I know I went back and changed 2 of the answers, and I probably shouldn't have done that. But like I said, my father was very ill at the time, so I should have postponed it until later. But, I figured I was going to be cool and take it before I graduated. And so it was okay. But I have another opportunity to take the test. Here in Kansas, or where I live in Johnson County, they're kind of scheduled out to like the end of July, beginning of August, because they shut everything down. So, but I have all the materials, your videos, a couple groups on Facebook. There's another Zoom meeting that meets every 2 Sundays, so there's so much out there. And I'm looking at all my materials, and I've done, like I've picked and choose, and I just need to focus.
And I only asked about the previous attempt because you were close. And I'll say it again, you were close. So the system you did before is what you kind of have to replicate now. And that's where I often say it's the people that fail by the least amount of points that freak out and think they have to redo the entire system. When if you embrace...
Well, my thinking was... Oh, no, go ahead.
And what I was saying is, like, when you embrace that I failed by 1 point, I just have to change small details and I'm going to destroy this exam, that is where you have to get your mindset. You don't need another program. You don't need more resources. You don't need all of these other things. You just need to do the exact same thing that you did last time, not second guess yourself and change answers, and walk in there and kill it. Like, you don't have to have this huge epiphany or change all of these things and do all of these things to get closer to where you were at,
Right.
because you were 1 point
And
away.
this was actually the one time that I could get a C and it would be okay. So I kind of went in with that attitude, but you know, I want to at least give myself the appearance of doing something.
From what you were kind of saying is like, I have to give myself credit for all of these things were happening in my life. I still walked into the exam and I didn't pass, and I wish I would have rescheduled. With the experience of having all this adversity happening into your situation and then walking into the exam and being so close, you're not going to go through all of those adversities again that you went through before. So you're going to be better off in this next exam attempt because you know what it looks like and the techniques you were doing worked.
Right. You know, but I just feel like, oh, come on, I got to put some effort into this. Just a little bit, because I feel so lucky to have, you know, material like this was inexpensive. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I was telling other people is I was like, oh, it's okay. This is the one test you can get a C on and still be okay. So if there's overachievers out there, because I always did well. I did do well in school, but I wasn't an overachiever. Where some of my friends who were younger, you know, they wanted to get A's. And I said, but this is the one place that you can get a C and it's not going to be a bad thing. You just need to pass. They don't look at how many questions you got right. It's, did you get your license or you didn't get your license? So if you got it with a C, you can just keep quiet about it if you want. And, you know, I appreciate your videos. So I've kind of looked at them, and since everybody's in quarantine, you know, I have to say I've honestly been enjoying just looking at different people.
And that's where you're doing all of the right things. You just have to not be like, just because I have the materials, I need to use it. You need to figure out what works for you and going from there. I've had people that have had a ton of programs and they threw all of the ones that didn't work to the side, trusted one program, walked in and killed it.
Right. But I do appreciate your videos. Like, you know, yeah. But I do appreciate that. And it was very gracious of you to offer your time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be able to help.
Anyway, thank you very much. I don't want to take any more of someone else's time.
Okay. Well, if you need anything, just reach out, okay?
Great. Thank you so very much. Bye, everybody.